I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you this for free. The reason that later games released 4 new expansions was so that we could play 8-player Ahoy. Probably not, actually. But here's the deal. Ever since I received this box, I was thinking of the opportunity, the option that there might be a way to play Ahoy at an 8-player count with every single faction represented by 1 player. And I just thought, I just could not get this thought out of my head. And so this whole kind of like Summer of Ahoy thing started, and I started diving deep into all of this expansion content, figuring out all these factions, learning all of these interactions, kind of prepping for this moment. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this Summer of Ahoy, because I, for my birthday, ended up hosting a 8-player Ahoy, and there was a lot that went into this. There was a lot of preparation that went into this. And so, yeah, this video is about that preparation, those experiences, what happened, why it might be a good idea, why it might not be, all of that in one place. So let's start off with, what are the things that you absolutely need for 8-player Ahoy? Well, you need the expansion. You need both expansions, sorry. You need, Rival and Renegades, and you need Fang and Fortune. That's to get the extra factions. And the Rival and Renegades actually comes with the rules for a team mode, which we end up using, and I'll explain that later. The other thing that I would recommend, and I think this is pretty much needed, is a second copy of the game. I just don't know how else you're gonna do it. I was trying to think of ways to do 8-player Ahoy with just 1 base game copy, and I just can't figure it out. So in my opinion, what you absolutely need is both of the mini expansions for all those factions and a second copy of base. So that's what I got. I got those, and so if that's all you need, that's pretty not that expensive, because you might already have the expansion, so you just need a second copy of base. And luckily for Ahoy, it is actually one of the most well-priced products, I swear. I mean, you're gonna be paying 40 bucks for these. It's just really, really great components. You got nice wood pieces, dual layer player boards, dual layer tiles, lots of dice, different colored dice, cards, it's got everything. It's a very, very good, well-priced package. And since I couldn't wait for things to ship, I actually had my sister, shout out to you, Kinza, for picking up that second copy for me. So boom, we're making it work. Then some extra things that I ended up grabbing in preparation, but like I said, the only things that you absolutely need are the expansions and also a second copy of the game. But the other things that I got and gathered were the treasure pack. So the treasure pack is like a mini box expansion. I'll link the video down below where I go through all of what the treasure pack entails and why I think it's such a small package, but such a huge, huge product, and it changes the game drastically. I am an absolute madman and included the treasure pack in our 8-player game of Ahoy, so every single person at the table had another ability that they were going to be basically working around and using just to further that entanglement and asymmetry. You know me. The other thing that I thought of was that having a turn tracker is super helpful for this. So what I used was this orb that I actually got from Batu in Star Wars. But the reason why I got this guy, oh, and don't tell my friends that it was from Star Wars. I was lying to them that it was pirate treasure. It lights up. And so this was really, really helpful. And one of the reasons why I think a turn tracker is so important in something like this is with 8 players around the table, people are going to be goofing off, they're going to be leaving, maybe coming back. And so what I wanted was something really, really big on the table in front of the player whose turn it actively is. And I explained before we started in the briefing, I was like, when this orb is maybe 2 spaces or so before your turn, you should be thinking about what you want to do or start following the game again to kind of get equated with the board position and everything going on. That way we can kind of keep things a little snappy because there's 8 players and this is going to take a while. This actually just helped so much. You'll see it in some of the pictures, you'll see it in the videos. This was amazing. So yeah, just get something like a big light. I think that would be great, or just a big object that people aren't going to miss. I think this will pay off greatly. Another thing that I got, which totally extra, I got these bandanas. This was from Hobby Lobby, just like literally like 50 cents each or so. And I got all of the faction colors. So I had all my friends, thank goodness they're so willing and so sweet. Basically, I had all of them wear the bandana color that matched their faction. So we had like Leviathan player in green, Coral Cap Pirate player in pink, we had red, we had white for the smugglers. Both blue faction players wore the blues and both yellows wore the yellow caps. And this just helped during play to just be like, okay, I see you, you're on my team, or I see you, you're on my team, or you're against me, you know, oh, there's the coral cap. It just helps with like, just general like, okay, I know who everybody is. And so I found that to be very useful pickup. This was just another completely extra thing, but these were so cheap at, I believe it was also Hobby Lobby, but these were just like little chests like this. And I found this, I just kind of did this for flavor because I thought it would be fun, but basically I put all of the coins in here and also put gems that I got from, I think it was I forgot which board game it was, but I have a lot of like extra gems in my box, and so I just put gems in there to count for like every 5 coins that you collect, you can just take a gem instead, just in case we ran out of coins. That never became an issue. But I thought that these chests would be cool at each side of the table or head of the table. That way players on each side group could pull from a chest. That was just for, you know, extra fun. What are some of the other things that I did in preparation for what I needed? Oh yes, faction control markers. So I got these pawns from Amazon. I'll go ahead and include the link down below. These pawns were supposed to denote control for the factions. So the Blackfish Brigade basically used these black pawns, and the Bluefin Squadron used the blue pawns, and then the Mollusk Union used yellow. And then the Shellfire Rebellion used green pawns. And basically what I wanted was that if a faction had control over a region, they would place their colored pawn on that region so that all players knew, okay, this is who controls what. That helps for smugglers' pledges, that also helps for calculating much more quickly. The other thing that I'd recommend is colored dice, because the base game of Ahoy comes with blue dice, which are really cool. They have this little sparkly effect. They look perfect on the map. However, for readability's sake, especially when we're going from 11 tiles to 22 tiles total, with an 8-player game, it's very helpful to have colored dice that match the islands of the region. That way, all you have to do is look at the dice, and now you know, okay, that is a skull island, or that is a compass region. It's really, really helpful for recruiting, it's literally helpful for like everything. So I would highly recommend colored dice. I actually already had some because in a game that I already owned called Bear Raid, they actually come with all the perfect colors and they were the perfect size, and I had enough for both for all of the tiles. I'll try to find some on Amazon and link those down below for you to pick up, because I know some other players have actually done this for their copies of Ahoy. But I think that that is just a list of some of the things that I gathered in preparation. There was one thing you forgot, and that was the little X tokens that you use to denote which islands were dominated by the blue factions. So I actually used these little X's that I got from Votes for Women. It comes with a lot of check marks and X's, and I've actually been able to use those for a lot of different games for a lot of varying reasons, but you could use anything. But like something to denote that an island is dominated is really helpful when there's just so much stuff going on. There was one thing I made in preparation, which were these small videos, which are basically like short conversational, one-take how to plays of every single faction, and also a brief kind of overview of the game as a whole, so that even my friends that hadn't played Ahoy before, which there were 3 friends that were a part of the group that hadn't played at all, I was able to send out videos for each of the players with each of their respective factions that they were given And also, if they requested, I gave them all of the videos that they wanted to learn about, just so that they had as much preparation as they felt comfortable. And I'm not out here trying to keep all of this stuff to myself, so those conversational videos that I put together, I went ahead and released all of them, so they are going to be released as well as this video at the same time, so all of those links are going to be down below, and you can maybe use those. I'm not going to say they're perfect. They're literally one take on my phone. The audio is not what I would usually have for a video like this. The quality is not what I would usually have, but I think they're really helpful on giving a primer to players that have never played Ahoy. You give them the overview, you give them their faction, and this will get them rolling really, really quickly. So I did all that work for you, and also for my friends, and for my birthday. So. But what are some of the rules that we had to think about and add? I have a list here on my phone. The first one is that the Rivals and Renegades box comes with team rules, and I would highly recommend you read through the team rules of that rulebook, because if you already got the expansion factions, that's great, because now you already have the team rules. Because basically what I ended up deciding was that we're going to have both blue factions on a team, we're going to have both yellow factions on a team, and then we eventually got to the point where we're just like, okay, we're just going to do 2v2, v2, v2. So both Smugglers were on a team, and then Coral Cat Pirates and the Leviathan were on a team working together as well. And the way that I ended up splitting it up with the rules was I said that since the game has such a tight structure, I wanted to keep a lot of that structure. So since the turn structure usually goes blue, Smuggler or other position, yellow, Smuggler or other position, I did that on one side of the table, basically one full set, a whole basically group of 4 players on one side. And then kind of as it came over here, I had another group of 4. So it went blue, Smuggler or other, yellow, other, blue, other, yellow, other. That was way more complicated, but basically you get the idea. It alternated equally. Another thing that came up was, oh no, we're not gonna actually have an equal distribution of turns, and the game will probably finish before a player ever gets a chance to go first. I did not know how to solve this, so I made up a rule where basically we were gonna do the next 2 people, and it was random on who it would go to out of the next 2 people. So if Bluefin started, either the Smuggler would go first next round, or the Mollusk Union would go first next round, and they would go around the table. And then from that player, we would go forward 1 or 2 spaces, and we just randomized it with a die roll. I don't think that was a perfect solution, but we'll get to kind of some of those things that I might change later in the video. But okay, so there's that. The other thing is, since I had 2 copies of the game, I put a market on either side of the game, and those 4 players on each side could only interact with their specific market. The reason why I did it this way is so that there was no breaking the game with the Smugglers and their pledges, also recruiting numbers. Also, we don't have to worry about like duplicate recruits and duplicate crew members. We basically just cleaned up a ton of rules by just having 2 separate market decks, and you can only interact with your sides. We also said that basically we were going to start off with 2 Cs. So we started off with 2 normal C map setups. Basically had 2 4-player games, but we went around in turn order between the 8 of us. And then the rule was that when the 11th tile was placed on one of the sides, then the C's would converge. And now it was just full craziness. Everybody could jump around. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's good. Yep. Okay, like stop that.
Surgical.
Perfect, stop. And now, where were all these? No, this was definitely a knockover. Just scooch things a lot of that. No, because
This was like a that way.
What's up with this? Is this supposed to be?
Why are you connecting it all like that?
That's so because dumb. This is how the
Wait, was that how it's supposed to be?
No, wasn't that like a little bit heavy?
Was this over here? Was this over?
No, this was definitely over.
I dislike this entirely.
Why?
It was over 1.
How many pirates does it take to connect 2 Cs? Well, it seems more than 8. Yeah, we even ended up breaking a rule, so this was quite a disaster.
Oh, there's connected islands? Oh no, guys, we can't do that. We actually can't do it.
You didn't.
We
You
can't have islands
took a picture.
adjacent.
We took a picture.
We're gonna have to undo this connection.
Thank God. See,
Okay.
I told you.
Yeah.
it's
Chill
wrong.
yourself.
I told you.
Chill
When are we
yourself.
supposed to do that?
I have no clue.
Because you took a picture. You took a picture.
So what we're gonna do?
Took a picture.
Where you could, dear.
We can just be like
No, no, we're not gonna turn it.
it's a tectonic shift, you know.
Okay, so once we figured out the team roles, we actually moved those team roles to the smugglers as well. So like sharing gold and stuff, that was between all of the players that were on a team. I also decided that the score track would be on each side. That way you have a little bit more feeling of agency when you're moving up your own personal score track. And then at the end of the game, we went ahead and combined those scores on one board in order to determine the final scoring. And still, the end of the game would be triggered first to 30 points. So that stayed. Then, what else did we look at? So yellow and blue faction control markers. Basically, the reason why I felt like we needed to do this for rules reasons and to kind of keep track of that is because control points are going to be way easier to calculate, but also pledges ended up being quite a huge issue. Both smugglers have to set pledges when they make deliveries. And so in order to make it as fair as possible, since they have like a lot of potential to get a lot of extra points with all of the blue and all of the yellow factions on the board, I instead broke it down to where each smuggler had to individually determine which blue faction was going to control an island at the end of the game and which yellow faction was going to control an island at the end of the game.
Look at that, dude. That's the shark? Yeah, that's 2 parrots, baby. That is 4 points right there.
4 points. Oh, and then you have a skull. He has that skull.
Yeah, so that's 6 points. Skull. He controls 2 skulls.
Wait, that's
2-2.
So they had 4 pledge markers in front of them. So the smugglers had quite a bit of extra upkeep. Maybe that's not the perfect way, but it's the way we did it. And with the control markers, that actually made that really clear on what was controlled by who. We ran into a couple of issues where it was like, well, if there's 2 blue factions that controlled a region, does nobody control it? I decided that only one player will control it until that changes. So there will always be, like control for points and such. And to just make everything a little bit cleaner, I went ahead and just randomly assigned factions and treasure cards with a random generator, just to make sure that there was no like, okay, I want this faction, I want this faction, I want this faction. We had varying skill levels kind of jumping into the game, so I just decided to randomize absolutely everything. And shh, do not tell my friend Kelton, but we did unfortunately, he drew the Coral Cat Pirates the first time we randomly generated, and he's not allowed to touch them anymore, so we went ahead and re-ruled. So don't tell Kelton that we did that. Don't. So that gave us our teams, and it also was a really great way to get those videos out to them early. That way they could study up, figure out their faction, figure out their treasure card, all of that jazz. It ended up working out really, really well. I'll go ahead and show a picture, but the final scores after 5 hours and 15 minutes of gameplay, we had the yellow team at 18 points combined. We had the Coral Cap and Leviathan team at 20 points combined. We had the blue team at 28 points at the end of the game, and we had the smugglers at 32 points at the end of the game. And I honestly do think that the game would be even closer if all players were as experienced with Ahoy equally, but it's very hard to find 8 people that were as experienced with Ahoy, because we had a lot of people that this was their, we had 3 people that this was their very first game. A lot of people where it was their first 1 or 2 plays, and only a few that were like really confident. So this was a very interesting mixed group. And I still think that even after all of that, after all of that, I feel like the scores actually came out pretty well, especially for the smugglers not being that far ahead. I think the pledge system worked out. Is there anything that I would do differently? Kind of like last thoughts, those final thoughts and reflections. I think that the faction control and pledges system could use some cleanup, and I'm just not sure how to do it. I think that having the 4 pledges was kind of insane, and I'm glad that I could do it. I'm glad that Jimmy could do it. We luckily were both confident in the game enough to where this wasn't an issue. I do see that being a huge issue for most people. Especially if, like, you know, it's your first 1 or 2 games and you're like, pledge what? And then you're like, wait, I have to choose one of 4 factions to pledge it to? I liked the faction control markers. It did kind of mess. It was a little messy with like the different colors, but like I said, that helped for the pledges. So like this whole thing could be cleaner, but I'm not sure how to make it cleaner. So that was one thing that I was thinking of. So when we connected the seas, we had it so that you had to connect them with the most connections possible. However, I could see an argument for the player who places the 11th tile on either side just chooses where they want to place it. The reason why I didn't want to do that is because table space mostly. If you have infinite table space, that would be really a much better situation. But also, it's just a lot to move around 11 tiles and keep them in the same area and position while you're combining them. So I just said, okay, you just combine them together with the most connections possible. This did end up breaking an island rule in which we were all like arguing about whether we should flip it or turn it or rotate it. I should have already had a rule for that. I didn't even think about the possibility. Honestly, if you just made a rule that you have to connect them the legal way, it just might take a little extra time to find that spot, but it could totally be worth it. So yeah, I think that there could be some work there with the combining of the seas portion. Yeah, another thing that I thought about was simultaneous play until the 11th tile is placed. So since I had 4 players on each side of the sea with their own region tiles to pull from, I was thinking that maybe to speed up the game a little bit, especially in that early game where the entanglement isn't so much, you could actually have both sides actually play simultaneously and just make sure that when one side's done for their round, they wait for the other side to be done for the round and then continue. That actually may make things go way faster, because then when the 11th tile's placed, then you're all going to be together on that giant map. I will say the brain fog hit so hard. Once those maps combined, we were like, oh my gosh, just the sheer amount of information. Just look at this picture. Look at what is going on right now. I think it was by like the 4th hour that we just had like, you know, we started off with like patch eyes on covering our faces and bandanas and everything. And by like the 4th hour, as we're looking at this vast open ocean with so much garbage and clutter in it. Players were taking off their bandanas, their patch eyes were on chins. Like there was just so much chaos going on with our brains. It's a lot to take in. I definitely, like, if you're wanting to get somebody into Ahoy, do not start with this. I'm so glad that I have troopers for friends. Like, special thank you to like Connor, Caleb, Powell, like for it being your first time playing Ahoy. Thank you so much for doing this for me, because I put you through so freaking much. And I'm just so thankful that you guys were there for me. But yeah, that brain fog hits hard, and I know that some people really wanted me to do a combined sea at start. I am going to stand by the fact that if you don't want your game to last 8 hours, this is the way, because otherwise you're going to have, essentially, at the beginning of the game for everyone, we were only making decisions against 3 other players like normal. Then when the sea combined, then we were making decisions against, you know, 7 other players, essentially. Or 6 other players. And so with that in mind, man, if you start off combined, you're going to be thinking about the other people on the ocean right then from the start, all the players, everything. And if that's what you want, awesome. I was not trying to make Twilight Imperium Ahoy. I was trying to make an 8-player Ahoy experience that could work within a reasonable amount of time. And I think 5 hours and 15 minutes is a pretty good time frame considering there were 8 players. Yeah, so that's kind of some of the thoughts. Did I have fun? I had an absolute blast. I thought it was a great time. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna actually have all of my friends, I'm gonna ask them to make a comment down below on what their experience was genuinely like. If they want to share, I would definitely want to hear their experience of like, was this fun? Was this a good time? So I'm gonna have them all comment down below. That way you can read their responses as well. If you have any questions for my friends, if you have any questions for me, please leave those down below. If you have any questions about the rules that I use, the products that I got, anything, just drop them down below and I will be sure to help you out. I think that this format actually could work. I want to do it again. I genuinely do. Like, this was a blast for me. Putting it together was so much fun. I dressed up as a captain. I had my friends wear the bandanas. The vibes were there. I'll also include my Ahoy playlist because I put together an Ahoy playlist. So that's playing in the background. It's got some nice jazzy, piratey vibes. It's perfect for this kind of Ahoy world, in my opinion. I guess after all of this information, I just kind of shot an overload of information over to you. After all of this information, do you think that you might try 8-player Ahoy sometime? I would love to hear if this is something that you're interested in. And thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much to Kelton, Jimmy, Caleb, Pal, Connor, Jeffrey, and Josh. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for helping me make my birthday dream a reality of playing 8-player Ahoy. But that is it for today's video. Let's go ahead and drop the beat.